Naughty Dog has been in a very weird position recently. There's been a serious content drought for them, and to make up for that, they've seen it fit to just milk their previous successes as much as humanly possible while they scramble around the offices trying to figure out what the heck's going wrong with all their new projects. As of this video's production, The Last of Us multiplayer game that's been in development for something like 4+ years now is either on ice or dead, depending on who you want to listen to. It's not great news either way. And there's no real ETA or official clarity on what the next single-player game from this studio is going to be, despite their last title having launched over 3 years ago. I say it all the time that Naughty Dog is insanely talented on a technical level, but the way they're being run is ridiculously counterproductive, and I can only imagine what actual fans of this studio have been feeling for the last few years. But after another year of silence about the future of their single-player games and no official clarification on what's going wrong with the multiplayer game, Naughty Dog fans could have used some reassurance that new content is indeed coming, and that Naughty Dog isn't just going to keep sniffing its own farts for another year or two. That's what they needed, you know? But instead, you got this fucking nonsense. So last week, it was leaked via LinkedIn that the next Naughty Dog release is likely going to be a remaster of The Last of Us 2. It's not going to be the multiplayer game, it's not going to be something new, it's going to be a remaster of their most recent new release, which is already fully playable on the current generation of PlayStation hardware. Now, let's just address this right out of the gate. Last of Us 2 Remastered, just as a concept, is really hard to defend. This game existing at all is incredibly hard to justify any way other than just as a cash grab, because The Last of Us 2 is not only playable on the PS5 already, but it got a pretty fat performance patch for the hardware, and the game still looks excellent from a graphical standpoint, so really, I don't know how much prettier you can make this game without having to drop the frame rate. And at that point, why even bother re-releasing the game, because you're just making the experience worse, you know? Just add another graphical option to the existing version at that point. There really isn't much actual purpose for a remaster of The Last of Us 2 on the PS5. This isn't like the first game's remaster on the PS4. That remaster served a purpose because the original game was on the PS3 and the PS4 was not backwards compatible. Now, Sony should never get props for excluding backwards compatibility, but the PS4 remaster of the first Last of Us at least had some utilitarian value, you know? But this is very obviously a cash grab, and with Naughty Dog currently pissing a lot of people off with their constant milking of this franchise, it's just really hard to defend a remaster of Last of Us 2 from any logical standpoint. I mean, it's being reported that the multiplayer game that was supposed to launch with Last of Us 2, but then got spun off into its own thing and then went into fucking limbo for 4 years without a single second of gameplay. I mean, it's being reported now that that game has a pretty decent shot of not even coming out, so that's cool. Last of Us 2 was the last actual game that Naughty Dog released, and now 3 to 4 years later, they're remastering it? Like, no. This is the most self-obsessed cash grab I've ever seen, but if we know anything about Neil Druckmann, then Lord knows he's probably just getting started with the self-obsessed cash grabs. God, Neil Druckmann butchered this fucking studio. Like, fucking talk about a destroyable beloved studio, any percent fucking speed run. Oh. The only real purpose I can see of a remaster of this game is that it can come with a PC port, but like, what's stopping you from just putting the existing version on PC? You know? No matter how you want to look at a Last of Us 2 remaster, you have to admit that it's really hard to defend this. But that doesn't mean nobody's defending it, and if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you've probably noticed by now that the dumber the thing you're defending is, the dumber you're going to look trying to be its white knight. Case in point, the subject of this video. So a few days after the news of Last of Us 2 Remastered broke, this piece of nonsense flopped onto my Twitter feed to break up the countless other posts that I was seeing from typically PlayStation-focused people talking shit, which was refreshing. Like, it's a tad late for the Sony guys to realize their favorite companies don't actually respect them, but hey, you know, late character development is still character development. But then there's Old Mate Gamer, who decided to do some damage control for Naughty Dog and Sony by basically just trying to redirect everyone's criticisms of Naughty Dog over to Nintendo. It didn't work. So Old Mate Gamer says, I've said it so many times, Nintendo gets a pass for everything, hashtag The Last of Us 2, and attaches this meme that I will leave on screen for you to read and maybe cringe at once or twice. Now, it shouldn't be hard to tell right out of the gate how bad of a comparison this is. Like, Mario Kart 8 launched on the Wii U, a console that hardly anyone bought. It was re-released on the Switch as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was all the base game's content, plus some quality of life improvements and performance upgrades, and it was a truly portable version of the game, and it had all the DLC, and has continued to be supported for years and years and years after its launch. You know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out in 2017, I think. Yeah, 2017. And it's gotten so many content patches since then, so it's not like it was just a simple re-release of the original game. Now, compare that to Last of Us 2 Remastered, it's going to be a remaster, it's right there in the title, of a game that already looks and plays really fucking good on the current PlayStation hardware, and it was released for the previous set of PlayStation hardware, which was one of the best-selling consoles of all time. So it's not like there was a limited market to sell this thing to like there was with the Wii U version of Mario Kart 8. Calling Mario Kart 8 Deluxe a simple re-release or remaster in the same sense as a literal remaster is just you doing Naughty Dog's damage control for them. They simply are not the same kind of thing. But like I always say, it's not a terrible Twitter thread without OP trying desperately to defend themselves in the replies, and it's really just dumb. Fat Gamer Boy says The Last of Us could have just been a free upgrade through back compat though. Switch isn't backwards compatible with the Wii U, so MK8 Deluxe makes more sense. Ooh. Nice voice crack. But Old Mate Gamer responds, is that a Last of Us problem though? Switch could have been back compat and they could have offered Mario Kart 8 as a free upgrade. Dude, you are missing the point. Last of Us 2 is already playable on the PS5, the platform that they're selling the remaster for. The game is already playable there, and already has really good graphics and performance. The room for a remaster here is incredibly slim, especially since, like I said earlier in this video, the only way you could remaster a game like Last of Us 2 and make the graphics even better is by kneecapping the frame rate, meaning the only way to remaster this game is to make the gameplay experience worse, so there genuinely is no fucking reason to remaster this game on the PS5. But Mario Kart 8 was released exclusively on the Wii U, a platform that was a huge flop and had to be replaced by the Switch ahead of schedule so Nintendo HQ wouldn't just like catch on fire. It makes total sense for Nintendo to want a new version of Mario Kart out on the new hardware, and to sweeten that deal, they would include all the DLC and a bunch of gameplay improvements and future updates. Could they have just made the previous game backwards compatible? Well, I guess for digital copies, sure. But then that just presents another major issue with your argument here. The Wii U was a disc-based console and the Switch is cartridge-based. And also we're talking about Nintendo in the mid-2010s, so the ratio of people buying Nintendo games physically versus digitally was even more lopsided than it is today, you know, back when the Wii U was a thing. So if the Switch came out and all Nintendo did to preserve Mario Kart 8 was make the digital version of the Wii U version backwards compatible, then one of the best games of the Wii U era would basically just be Thanos snapped out of existence, because it's not like Nintendo is going to keep these stores running forever now, are they? The equivalency you're trying to draw between Mario Kart and Last of Us is just stupid. But this logic doesn't even make any sense. Really think about what you're saying here. You're saying Mario Kart 8, a game that, when vanilla, literally is not compatible with the Switch. You're saying the re-release of that game could have just been a free upgrade on the Switch. Reminder, Mario Kart 8 included all the DLC and a bunch of other gameplay improvements and content additions over time. You think that should have been a free upgrade to the Wii U version, but Last of Us 2 getting a remaster on the PS5, that's fine? Like, do I have that right? I mean, judging by the initial post here, you seem to think that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Last of Us 2 Remastered are on the same level of value, or I guess like the same level of worthiness to be a thing, you know? You're equating these two games, but you also now seem to think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe could have been a free upgrade. And if that's the case, why are you not upset about having to pay for Last of Us 2 Remastered? Like, you can't refer to these two games as equal, but then use one of their inherent flaws as a positive for one side but a negative for the other. That is literally not how arguments work. Shannon Knoll responds to your initial post, there's a reason I never criticized the existence of Last of Us Remake/Remaster. Who would have thought that porting to completely different hardware would cost money and resources? I hadn't gotten to playing Last of Us 2 yet, does this mean I should wait? And then Old Mate Gamer responds, as gamers, we should never criticize choice. If you don't want it, don't buy it. Just keep playing the old version of you happy with that, just the same as Mario Kart 8 on Wii U. Again, you're trying to argue both sides of the same thing at the same time, and you're too stupid to notice you're doing this. Again, you're drawing the conclusion that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Last of Us 2 Remastered are equivalent to each other, that they're both simple re-releases, you know, unceremonious. And in this tweet, you even acknowledge that playing the old version of Last of Us 2 is a choice you have, but I guess we'll fucking gloss right over that, because it's not like that destroys the entire point you're making here. But also, I hate how you start this, oh, gamers should never criticize choice. Yeah, no, totally. Because it's not like publishers would ever give us shitty choices, right? It's not like publishers would ever give us completely pointless purchasing choices instead of funding new ideas or better products that we would rather choose. That never happens. Those shitty, creatively bankrupt cash grabs are just options. They're just more options. God, I love the internet and all the people who use it. The Trails Doctor responds to the initial post, these are not the same thing at all. Last of Us 2 can already be played on PS5 at 1440p 60 FPS. Mario Kart 8 couldn't use a Wii U disc on Switch, so a Switch version was made, with extra content and now an extra 48 tracks, double the original Wii U release. Old Mate Gamer responds, so if they didn't release a 60 FPS patch, it would be fine? No, you fucking doofus. It wouldn't be fine. Because guess what? If they hadn't released a 60 FPS patch for Last of Us 2, we would be asking them why they hadn't yet, not demanding they re-release the entire game. That's the entire fucking point of what everyone has been saying to you. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe literally could not have been a patch. Last of Us 2 Remastered absolutely can be. At Maiden Duai says Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is probably one of the best games ever. It should be released on every Nintendo console, nothing wrong there. Old Mate Gamer responds, I would say the same for The Last of Us 2. And at least now you're being honest about this. You're defending The Last of Us 2 Remastered not because you think it's actually equivalent to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe from a utility level or a decent respect for your consumers level. Your defense of Last of Us 2 Remastered simply comes from the fact that you want it. You like Last of Us 2, you think it's really groovy and cool and hip, and that means you want to pay for it a second time at no actual benefit to you. I gotta tell you, Naughty Dog fans are a weird bunch. Took us fucking forever to get here, but at least you're saying the truth somewhere, you know? After Old Mate Gamer got roasted up and down the garden path for this thread, he tried to follow it up with a more like, ooh, look at me, I'm actually intelligent about this kind of post, you know? He followed it up with this, which is trying to, I think it's trying to argue that Last of Us 2 Remastered could contain the factions multiplayer, and that would somehow make the whole thing worth it, I think is what you're trying to say. And if that's actually what happens, I think that would just be hysterical, because factions got cut from Last of Us 2, but you still had to pay full price for the game off the promise that the multiplayer mode was coming eventually. It would be really fucking funny if it turns out you have to pay for Last of Us 2 a second time if you want the multiplayer that was cut from Last of Us 2 when you bought it the first time. I would just get a nice big snicker out of that. But also, if that somehow did happen, and you celebrated that happening, just fuck The Last of Us 2 at this point, bro. You guys just fuck already. It's exhausting watching you basically lick the game disc with your words. A remaster of this game benefits literally nobody other than possibly PC players. But even then, if that was the goal, if getting the game to the PC was the goal, you should have just ported the original version to the PC, because there is no fucking shot that an arbitrarily remastered version of this game is going to give me better performance than the original 2020 version. And mark my words, this may end up just being the same level of fuck nonsense as the first game's PC port was, which again, that whole fiasco could have been avoided by just porting the PS4 version to PC instead of the PS5 version. In conclusion, just fucking do better. Do better. Everyone involved, just fucking be better than this. Good lord, Toodles.